according to McKinsey report, women live longer than men, but they live most of the unhealthy lives.
Yes, absolutely. That report was really eye-opening, I would say. So the report also said, like you said, they live unhealthy lives. 25% of them, in comparison to men, live unhealthier lives.
Right.
That is apparently 9 years of a woman's life is spent living in an unhealthy way because of chronic conditions, because of other things. And menopause, very interestingly, is a biomarker. Signals, the onset of like chronic conditions. For example, cardiovascular disease or osteoporosis or cognitive decline and things like that. So this is a very critical time period which kind of signals to how a woman will age in the future. And unfortunately, nobody's talking about it to that extent. And nobody even knows that, if they take care of themselves during these critical years, you can live healthier lives.
Right. Hi, it's Navneet. Welcome to Femtechindia podcast, where we discuss Femtech and women's health. My today's guest is Sanjana Rao, the co-founder of Miyara Health. With the PhD in biochemistry, Sanjana is passionate about women's health and providing evidence-based information. So join me welcoming Sanjana. Tell us a bit about your journey and inspiration behind Miyara Health.
Yeah, I would love to. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. We've been in touch for a while, so it's great to, do this in person. My background is I'm a scientist by training, so entrepreneurship was never on the cards really. So I was in research and academia, but as soon as I had my first my baby,
right.
I was looking for medical care, and I realized there's a huge gender divide between, first of all, men and women,
right.
and also affecting my health, right? So I would go to doctors and try to get information about, the next phase of my life, and I was not getting, proper answers. I was looking online and I was not getting answers, and I was like, how can this be? I'm a woman in my, late 30s, and
right.
And I'm a scientist, so I should have access to information. So that's how, the kind of the seed, as we say, for Miyara, started. And that's how I met my co-founder Gayatri, and we created this health platform, which is Miyara, where we provide digital support for menopause care and support, and very focused on evidence-based care.
Right.
So that women can access solutions as well as support in this time of their life.
No, amazing. Love that. So menopause affects nearly 1.2 billion people globally, right?
Yeah.
And women typically spend third of their lives living with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why there is so less information about this?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but what I will talk about is how society, there's a lot of sexism and patriarchy in society, and also women, there is a very little awareness of and also very little awareness about reproductive health and a woman's
right.
own body, and it's something that's not really talked about, right? It's something that people don't want to come into discussion saying, I had period pain, or I had this, or I had that. And women themselves are not aware. So I think all these reasons combined kind of created that taboo and that stigma about women's bodies, women's health, and our mothers never spoke about it, right?
True.
And their mothers never spoke about it to them. And then it almost felt like this is just one magical day and that's it, and you're done with your menstrual cycle. But it's not
right.
so simple.
Yeah, but I've also heard someone told me that there was no Hindi term for menopause before, right? Is that true?
This is something that I've also heard, and I actually, to be honest, I haven't found the word for menopause in Hindi. If you know about it, please let me know. But maybe someone can let us know. But I have not so far heard about it. In other languages as well, I'm not sure the word for menopause really is there.
Yeah, if anybody knows,
please let us know, and we'll also update our knowledge.
Yeah. So, also the average age for menopause in US is 51, right? But whereas in India, it's 47.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the factors do you think contributing to this?
Yeah, so that is an interesting question, and we've asked a lot of, we've looked at a lot of research and we've asked a lot of menopause experts and specialists in this space.
Right.
And apparently it seems like Indian women are just born with fewer eggs. So they have, the ovarian reserve is much smaller than, say, Caucasian women.
Right.
So because menopause is the one day of menopause when your menstruation stops is because the eggs are no longer there. So you can imagine if you have fewer eggs to start with,
right,
yeah, menopause would start earlier and you will start experiencing your symptoms earlier.
Right.
And the factors that contribute to this, I was just looking at a study, and apparently in rural India, it's also because of nutrition or malnutrition, lifestyle factors, like not having enough exercise or exposure to sunlight, genetic factors. So
Right.
I think it's a combination of factors that over time, this is what has happened.
Right.
It's also now related to the age when one starts menstruating, for example.
Right.
So if you menstruate earlier, then you go through
Yeah.
menopause earlier. So I think it's very difficult to pinpoint one or two things. I think it's a combination of factors, and that has led Indian women to face these struggles about having problems with, say, fertility, and then
Right.
going through menopause earlier. Of course, like I said, there's genetic factors, but it's also the way we live now.
Right.
Our exposure to processed food, for example, sugar and everything,
Right.
and lack of exercise, sedentary
Yeah.
lifestyle. So I think these are all and lack of sunlight, right? Of course,
course.
it's really hot in Bangalore right now, so nobody's really going in for the
No,
vitamin
but
D.
actually, Bangalore, everyone has the vitamin D deficiency.
Exactly. So it's
Right.
not like nobody goes and
Yeah.
stands and gets the sunlight. Or nobody gets tested to check for this. So
Right.
these are all factors which kind of lead, and of course nutrition, right? It
Yeah.
also plays a role on, like I said, it has an impact on premature menopause or getting
Right.
earlier menopause. So these are all kind of interlinked. So hopefully we need to put in structures in place so that we can solve this problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so I also want to talk about a little, what impact does menopause has on women's health, especially in terms of healthy aging and longevity, right?
Yeah.
And a topic that often not discussed.
Yes, absolutely.
And according to McKinsey report, women live longer than men, but they live most of the unhealthy lives.
Yes, absolutely. That report was really eye-opening, I would say. So the report also said, like you said, they live unhealthy lives. 25% of them, in comparison to men, live unhealthier lives.
Right.
That is apparently 9 years of a woman's life is spent living in an unhealthy way because of chronic conditions, because of other things. And menopause, very interestingly, is a biomarker. Signals, the onset of like chronic conditions. For example, cardiovascular disease or osteoporosis or cognitive decline and things like that. So this is a very critical time period which kind of signals to how a woman will age in the future. And unfortunately, nobody's talking about it
Right.
to that extent. And nobody even knows that, if they take care of themselves during these critical years, you can live healthier lives.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that we want to, hope with our platform people realize that.
Yeah. So, does menopause affect differently for women who are probably going through diabetes, cancer, and disabilities?
That's a really good question. So, for disability, I would say the biggest thing is for a person with disability, the biggest thing is probably access.
Right.
So, you kind of restrict your access to care and support just because of your disability. Menopause itself is supposedly called an invisible disability.
Right.
So I think that's the first thing. Cancer treatment can, for example, chemotherapy drugs can induce menopause, and I think a lot of people don't realize this because, especially for like reproductive cancers, for example, ovarian, cervical cancer, or
Right.
breast cancer. For some chemotherapeutic drugs can start you on menopause directly because they can shut down your ovaries, or they're meant to shut down your ovaries.
Right.
So you can already start having hot flashes or sexual health problems,
Yeah.
for example vaginal dryness and things like that.
Right.
So that's one thing which is very important to know, and a lot of Indian women have gone through a hysterectomy where they've removed the uterus and the ovaries, and that also brings upon menopause suddenly.
Right.
So there are all these different conditions that no one's talking about, but interestingly, even for women with autoimmune disease like thyroid or lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, their symptoms get very much aggravated, menopause symptoms. So these studies are ongoing, but there seems to be a link between all of this and the decline of the reproductive hormones. So there's more work to be done. We still need to figure it out, but yeah, there are many different kinds of menopause firstly, and of course it affects different people with different conditions, and diabetes is something you mentioned. So there is a lot of interplay between insulin and the reproductive hormones as well, so it can make the menopause worse. And in fact, like I was saying, because it's such a critical time window, the menopause time, you can also be more prone to high cholesterol and diabetes during this time. So a lot of care is required. So we do actually, because our health platform is catered to, because it's a digital platform, and one of our main things is giving women access to care and support, right? We target all kinds of women, and a lot of women who come to us do have chronic conditions, do have diabetes, or some, a person had arthritis who had come to us. So we do understand the interplay, and we provide them with either programs that they can do on their own, or give them access to a care professional that can support them.
We're also seeing there are a lot of discussions about premenopause, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, why is it? We've already touched upon that, because of lifestyle changes and all of that. But I just want to briefly understand, what is the age for premenopause, and why is it affecting women so early?
Yes. So let's just get some definitions out of the way first. So when we talk about menopause, it's the end of your reproductive cycle. So it's the end of your period.
Right.
And it's actually just one day, right? Because 12 months after your period ends, that day is called your menopausal day. Right. Before that is this perimenopause period, and post that is your postmenopause period.
Right.
And this can start anywhere between 5 to 10 years before menopause day, the perimenopause period I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so if you can imagine, if we just mentioned it, Indian women go through menopause at 47.
Right.
So then when does 5-10 years before? So it's in your mid-30s. So that is a reason. And of course, as we mentioned, it's primarily because of the a number of eggs a young girl, a baby is born with, and then during puberty. So it's all kind of interrelated. And Indian women go through this premature menopause and early menopause, and there's a need for understanding this and support, right?
Right. So which means is also premenopause can also affect the fertility, right?
Yes, absolutely. It can affect, because I think one thing people should understand is, although it can decrease fertility, but you can also get pregnant because the hormone cycles are, fluctuating. So if you don't want to get pregnant, protect yourself accordingly. But if you do, also talk to a medical professional about your cycle.
Right. And what are the symptoms for premenopause?
Yeah, so there are, I think now when we first started doing the work, people said there were 34 plus symptoms, but now the number has gone up to 50 or something like that. So everything that you can imagine from the top of your head to the tip of your toe could be related to estrogen, and which is the hormone that is declining.
Right.
So I'm kind of going to divide it into some buckets, let's say. So there are these vasomotor symptoms, which are like hot flashes, night sweats, and things like that.
Right.
There are psychological symptoms, for example, brain fog or anxiety or depression or, so those kind of, and you're just feeling not like yourself. I think that's one of the first things women say to us. They don't feel like themselves.
But how do you know, is it perimenopause symptom or it's something related to mental health? Or
it could be both, right? So and actually this is what we are trying to help medical and mental health professionals understand is, you need to understand that during this life stage, hormones play a huge role.
Right.
So you can't, support a woman in isolation. You need to understand her life stage as well.
Right.
So so I was saying psychological symptoms. There are also symptoms that affect your sexual health. For example, low libido, vaginal dryness, irritation, pelvic floor issues, for example, incontinence. Some people have said tingling sensation, or like a tinnitus of the ear, so like a ringing of the ears, dry eyes. So I mean, it's a huge array of symptoms, and exactly what you said, it's very difficult to understand if it is this or that.
Right.
And that's why something that we advocate for is for a woman to track her symptoms herself, because you are the best, you know your body the best, you know what the changes you're going through the best. So awareness is so important in this case. So track your symptoms, then go to a doctor or a platform with your symptoms and seek out the support that you need. But it needs to come as you being your best advocate, your health advocate.
No, absolutely. So how does Miyara's approach tackles all these problems, right? And I think you're the only digital first platform in India, right?
Yes, I mean we are, yes, exactly. Firstly, big shout out to all our the people working in this space, because we need to shine a much needed light not only on menopause but women's health in general, and you're doing a fantastic job of that as well. But our approach is, because we are me and my co-founder Gayatri, as you mentioned in the beginning, are scientists by training. We like to look at the science and the data and kind of create our digital programs based on what the information that exists. And also because we are very customer centric and customer focused, we kind of adapt our programs to what would work. So using science and information and research, we adapt our programs to make it more suitable and accessible to all. So yes, we are a digital platform, and reason for doing that is to give people access. So we want to make so of course India is our, both of us being from India, it is very special to us to make a impact here. But we want to make it accessible to every woman, because menopause is not an India issue.
Of course,
it's a global issue. And what was the statistic? 1.1 billion women will go through menopause or something by next year. Or we will be post-menopausal rather. So we just want to, that's why also it was a digital platform, and it started during COVID. So now we want to expand and grow that reach and that,
So where are your users are currently located around the world?
So of course India is one of, as I mentioned, one of our primary user base, but of course South Asian women present all over the world. And I think for them we're just more relatable, and we're giving them access to our platform, right? But as I mentioned, menopause is not an India problem. It's a global issue. We do have people reaching out to us from the UK, from in Switzerland, and the rest of Europe, in Germany, and of course in the US as well. So I think we have reach, and we've reached users, almost everywhere in the world. Even in Australia, we have some users. So and Singapore, that's also a large base. So. So I think we've managed to cover, but of course we need to grow our reach, and hopefully with your podcast as well.
For sure. And of course, every country is different. Every country has a different cultures. So how do you adapt that the culture needs according to your user base?
That's really interesting, but I feel like there are some commonalities. For example, the lack of awareness is, to a large extent is common. The doctors, the access to trained medical professionals is also, lack of access to trained medical professionals is also common. Because one thing I didn't mention in the beginning is even medical professionals are not trained in menopause care, right? And this is a global issue. So there are some commonalities, but I think in the rest of the world, there's not this kind of shame about sexual health or body and stuff like that. So we need to be culturally sensitive based on which country we are looking at, and we try to do that, because in India some things will not be so easy to talk about. So we are hoping to make these uncomfortable conversations more comfortable.
Right.
But in Europe, for example, maybe it's more easy to talk about your body and your health.
Right.
And but still, I mean, it's so funny because in Europe, every time I go and speak to somebody about menopause, they always say to me, the first thing they say to me is, "Oh, I'm too young to be going through this perimenopause."
Yeah.
Because there's this impression that it's only for old people.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's not going to affect me. Even, so that's the thing. So I think, and then, we feel like we always go into conversations and we're telling people, you could be perimenopausal or you could be perimenopausal. Right. And our intention is not to, make people feel bad. We're just like saying, be prepared, be aware, and then, take the right support and steps.
So, again, coming back to India, because you're building for India, right? How do you plan to bridge the digital divide and reach homemakers in tier 2, 3 cities who don't understand what menopause is, as we just discussed? We don't even have Hindi term, right?
Yeah.
And since you are a digital first platform.
Yes, that's a very interesting question, and we've been thinking about it a lot. But it's so interesting because our first users on our platform when we first started were all from tier 2 cities.
Wow.
So for me, it was like, okay, we're able to reach them. So they are on social media, they are on these platforms. But I think we could add more layers to our offerings in terms of making it multilingual, for example, because as you know, India has so many different languages.
Right.
So multilingual access, keeping it easy, accessible on your phones, and not making the whole thing complicated.
Right.
But I think what we're trying, and also going to the regional places with regional influencers, for example, targeting that group. Or even community centers, or because women like to hang out with in little communities and things like that. So kind of accessing where they hang out. But I think we need to do a little bit more of a deep dive to understand where our users are, and hopefully making it multilingual and accessible will be one of the first steps that we'll start with. But then we'll build on that.
Right. So you do plan to get into tier 2, 3 cities?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. So that is definitely the plan, and one of the ways we do that is also through corporates.
Right.
And going to we're also trying to talk to CSR initiatives, and trying to go to the grassroots and talk about this, like you said, and.
Right.
So those are different ways that we've thinking of different GTMs to kind of access this tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Yeah, definitely.
Great, amazing. And do you have some case studies to share? What's the impact you have created?
Yeah.
So it's I feel like sometimes as a startup founder, you always wonder what is the impact that you're creating, right? Like at every stage you ask yourself. But I think since we've started, we've really been, so we have a community which is very active. Right. So that's one of the first things that we started to build. But we've also done a lot of community outreach programs, and going to corporate. So in fact, one of the corporate sessions we did, we were expecting, we were wondering whether we even have 50 people.
Right.
800 people came to that corporate session.
Where was that?
This was a virtual session that we did. And there were 800 people, and the questions were just continuous. So we just felt like, okay, and they were so appreciative that someone was taking the time to kind of answer their questions and give them space.
Right.
So so I feel like those sessions are so impactful, and I think and so many people have sent us testimonials saying we've been game changers for their health and their for generally their how they're growing older. So I think we've had really great testimonials, and but of course we need to reach more people. So I think that's going to be the aim.
So one of our customers had she had come to us after a corporate session, and we had given her access to one of our care professionals in terms of a doctor.
Right.
And the doctor in fact managed to diagnose, to tell her to go and see a cardiologist, and this was literally life-saving for her because she had huge blockages in her arteries. So we literally helped push her in the right direction at the right time. So these are things that these might be individual stories, but collectively they can they really make sense, and that's why we are here to do this.
Right.
Our aim as a platform, and as Gayatri and me as founders is, and I'll speak for her, is to reduce the burden of chronic disease, like for example, heart disease, diabetes, whatever it is, osteoporosis, which is huge in India as well. So we want to hopefully, talk to 30-year-olds and say 30 is not too young to be thinking about menopause, and so start taking the necessary lifestyle, make the necessary lifestyle changes so that you can live healthier lives in your 60s and 70s.
Right.
So I hope that is the impact that we will leave in India for sure, and of course globally. We want people to lead healthier lives. We want to contribute to data and research to support women's health. As you see from that McKinsey study, there's a huge research gap, there's a data gap, there's an access gap. So in some small or big way, we hope to contribute to closing that gap and helping women just live healthier.
No, absolutely. So can you break down your offerings at Miyara, and how do you support women who are going through menopause?
Yeah, so at Miyara, as I said, we are building a digital platform for menopause care and support, and we give women access to self-guided programs. And when we talk about where these women are, we also do corporate sensitization and awareness at the workplace, because menopause affects productivity at work, and women are struggling with symptoms at the workplace as well. So one of our big areas of support is corporate health.
We also do B2C services in terms of our self-guided programs, so women can come to our platform, do a health assessment, and kind of get triaged in some way to our support services in terms of our self-guided programs or access to support services that we offer on our platform. So we really want to build something that all women can access, as I mentioned. So in terms of fitness, nutrition, and mental health support, so we've really created the whole umbrella of programs as well as services to support women at the workplace and at home.
Do you have any message for women who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I will have a message for women and men. For the men, be more involved, learn about menopause and the effects that it can have on your partner, on your colleague, on your employee, on society at large. For women, of course, be your first health advocate. If the first doctor or the first professional is not helpful, seek out second opinions. Don't hesitate to be your, raise the flag for yourself and support yourself. Track your symptoms, very important. You need to go to someone with data. So that's definitely something that I would want to kind of stress. Go for regular health checkups. Don't hesitate to do that. Whether preventative care is so, seldom talked about. Preventative care is so important in terms of yearly checks and gynecology, even just going to your general practitioner. So all these things are so important to do. So don't hesitate to do that. And if you have mental health struggles, don't hesitate to go and see a therapist or a counselor. So that is for women and that is for men. But in general, I would just like to say, I would like to end by this quote from Michelle Obama saying, communities and countries are only as strong as the health of their women. So I think that sums it up. We just all need to build this together as a society and bring women's health forward, because it helps all of us.
No, absolutely. I think I totally agree on that. And that was such a great ending. Thank you, Sanjana. It was so great to have you. And thanks for sharing your insights, your mission at Miyara Health. And I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Navneet. It was great talking to you, even in this podcast setting. And yeah, we look forward to, collaborating further.
Sure, thank you.
So I think Femtechindia is doing a fantastic job by bridging, first of all, making us aware of what's happening in the ecosystem. Your newsletters are fantastic. And kind of just keeping this nice interaction between global and India and what's happening in Europe, all the investments, and we are learning so much, and hopefully, as the companies are growing, you are growing, and we can all help, make this ecosystem stronger and better for all of us. So thanks for doing such a great job, and yeah, look forward to doing more with you.
Thank you.